Greetings, Bassketeers, Josh Fossgreen here, and today we're going to make some music together using the major triad arpeggios that we learned in the last lesson, which, now that I've said that, you're probably thinking, maybe I should watch that before I do this one. So, unless you already know your major triad arpeggios, in which case you can do whatever you want, man. So, to follow along, please download the free PDF. It really is free, and it has sheet music and tablature that you will need to follow along. What we're going to be jamming on today is what happens if we use arpeggio inversions through a chord progression, because some really cool things can happen. Let's say that we had a 1-4-5 progression in the key of D, which is very similar to the progression we'll be dealing with today. If I didn't know about arpeggio inversions, I'd have to go like this. I'd have to shift around in blocks on the neck. If I know about inversions, I can do some really slick stuff like I can get to the other arpeggios by switching from the inversion I'm on to a different inversion depending on how far apart the roots are, and I can get much smoother sounding lines than I would without inversions. So that's what we're going to be exploring in the music, which you should now have pulled up. Teacher voice, finger pointing. Okay, before I explain this all, which is going to take a couple minutes, let's just try playing this together. This is going to be pretty fast, so this first play together may very well just be you listening, and then once we break it down for a couple minutes, maybe you'll be ready to play for the second one. Okay, we'll have a 1 bar count off, and then we'll be off to the races. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeehaw! Okay, let's break this down. So the guitar player is playing D, A, G, D over and over, and then at the end, hanging on A7 and then going to D. So it's just 1, 4, and 5 chords in the key of D. Very simple progression. And what we're going to do is use the arpeggios that correspond to those chords, D, G, and A major triad arpeggios. And we're going to cleverly use inversions to get all the way from here down to the bottom of the neck, mostly moving in half and whole steps on the chord-to-chord transitions. So let's look at the music together, and I'll break this down for you. Starting on D major triad in first inversion, right, because the third's the lowest note. Then we go to an A major triad in second inversion, because the fifth is on the bottom, right? Even though we're starting on the third, when we look at inversions, we're looking at what's the lowest sounding note, which in this case is the fifth. Then same thing, second inversion on the G chord to root position on the D chord, and that's the first 2 bars. Okay, now second 2 bars, bars 3 and 4, we repeat that root position D, and then we go to first inversion A so we can keep that common tone A on the top. And then we slide down to G, and then down a half step to D in second inversion, okay? So that's bars 3 and 4. Now bars 5 and 6, we repeat the D in second inversion. We go to A in root position now because A was on the bottom of the D in second inversion. Now if we go to root position, we can keep that A in the same place, which is nice and smooth. Then we slide down a whole step for G, root position, and finish that bar with D in first inversion. So before I get to bars 7 and 8, which are a little different, I just want to note that when we're going from the D chord to the A chord, we're changing our inversion. When we go from the A chord to the G chord, we are not changing inversion because those chord roots are already only a whole step apart. So it's a smooth move just to slide down in the same inversion. And then going from the G chord back to the D chord, we do another change of inversion because again we've got roots a fourth apart. Generally we only need to use inversions to make stuff smooth when the root movement isn't already smooth. So that's the first 6 bars. Then bars 7 and 8 is a goofy little cadence I came up with. And this is a fun little arpeggio pattern to be hip to. But this is all off of an A major triad arpeggio. We're going third up to the fifth, then we're skipping down to the root, doing the same move, skip down to the fifth, skip down to the third, and then we just play the arpeggio. So it's a slightly less linear way of playing through the arpeggio. I'm going ba-da, then skip down, ba-da, then skip back down, ba-da. So there's a lot of down, up kind of stuff happening. And then we're just finishing it on open D. So you have some hang time to find your way back here if you're not used to doing big dramatic movements on the neck that fast. So that's the theory breakdown. Obviously, this isn't really a bass line. It's more of a chordy melody kind of line. Oh, speaking of the word chord, another thing I wanted to mention is you may notice that the way I'm fingering this is sort of like I'm playing chords. What I do is I kind of structure my fingering as though I'm playing those notes as a chord, but then I try to only actually be pressing down on one of them at a time. So it's still sounding like an arpeggio, not like the notes of a chord being arpeggiated like I'm playing it right now where they're all ringing. What I want here is actually one note at a time. So to make that happen, it takes a lot of practice. You have to be familiar with the chord shapes and stuff. So just do the best you can with whatever fingering is seeming to work for you at the moment. One last thing before we play this together again, right hand fingering, there's a pretty simple fingering that works really well for this pattern. You just rake with your index for the first three notes. Index, 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 then grab the D string note at the end of the group of four with your middle finger. So you go index, 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 middle, then same thing. Because the string to string pattern is the same for all those groups all the way until you get to bars 7 and 8. For which you can pretty much just alternate, I think. Let's see, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Yep, just alternate through bars 7 and 8. Sometimes I don't even know what my hands are doing. Okay, so 1, 1, 1, 2 through the first 6 bars and then alternate in bars 7 and 8. Here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you for joining me on this musical expedition. If this stuff is hard for you and you'd like to be able to move around the neck with arpeggios better, I highly recommend that you check out my most recent book, Electric Bass Scales and Arpeggios, which is an ebook. You can just download it right onto your electronic device. Probably not onto like an electric device like a toaster or refrigerator, more for things like computery sort of things. But anyway, I have written out triad arpeggios, 7th chord arpeggios in great detail in 1 and 2 octaves in all 12 keys. So it's probably more stuff in that book than you really care to practice. But if you practice any of it, I think you will see the difference with your playing, with your ability to move around the neck with arpeggios without getting lost or flummoxed, as the case may be. And you're also welcome to check out my Patreon page. There are some cool rewards available for doing that, including having access to extended versions of these play-along tracks that I post just for my patrons there. So you can check that out if you want to. Thank you for joining me. I will be back at you in the next lesson with some minor triad arpeggios, which are equally important to be hip to. See you then.